America has never defaulted on the payment of its obligations. Our full faith and credit has stood the test of time. Never have Americans, our country, have we ever defaulted on the payment of our past debts. When we have needed to do something, we've done it. If we had to borrow to do it, we've paid back. But if under this Republican measure we default on the payment of our obligations, all of our obligations, this legislation, if it were to become law, would require us to prioritize the payment, as you've said, of principal and interest of debt obligations. So let's say that Republicans decide not to increase the amount of debt limit so we can pay all of our bills to everyone we owe. If this bill becomes law, if the law says we must pay the principal and interest of debt obligations, that means that any money that we're bringing in must be used to pay that principal and interest of those debt obligations. We will continue to receive money because Americans are still paying taxes. What we're saying is that we're not going to collect enough in revenues through those taxes and fees and so forth that we'll need to pay all of our obligations that we have. This legislation tells Treasury that it must use the money that's coming in to pay principal and interest on debt obligations. And if we still don't have enough, then we can roll that over to make sure that we're paying the principal and interest on debt obligations. And as they said in Hamlet, doth protest too much. This is the default. What you're doing is through this legislation saying we can roll over our debt, which simply means we're going to borrow to pay for the old borrowing. But what we're going to do is make sure that with any money we have, we pay the principal and interest to our creditors. And let me ask you this question. We have a number of creditors. My understanding is that 60% of our debt is to foreign creditors. So China, and most of that is China, Japan, other countries like that, Iran, other countries that hold American bonds. Under this legislation, we would be required to first pay to those foreign creditors the principal and interest that we owe them on the bonds that they have, the credit we owe that they have out for us, before we take care of anything else, which would include payments to veterans. We owe them a debt. To our researchers.
Yeah, let them go for 2 seconds.
If I could just conclude then and say you're prioritizing paying foreign creditors before you're prioritizing paying veterans who served our country. We owe them a debt. And that's the difficulty with this legislation. Default is default.